Hi, I'm Johannes Kornberger, and this is Mackinder Insights. As an analyst, I always like to use a theory or a model to understand global events and international relations, especially foreign policy. In this video, I'm going to explain what neoclassical realism is and how the theory works. To understand neoclassical realism, we need to go back to its roots. Think classical realism. Morgenthau. He focused on human nature, the idea that leaders seek power because that's what humans do. Structural realism, or neorealism, on the other hand, shifted the focus to the international system, an anarchic world where states compete based on relative power. A great example of this is the Cold War. The US and the Soviet Union balanced each other because there was no higher authority to stop them. But both theories have their limits. Classical realism can be too vague and focus on individuals. Structural realism can be too rigid and sometimes focus on the system too much. So neoclassical realism is good because it blends both classical realism and structural realism. It doesn't just ask what power a state has, but how that power is understood, filtered, and acted on by real people in real systems. Think about it this way. Two leaders can face the exact same international pressure, say a rising neighbor or a shifting alliance, but respond completely differently. Why? Because they don't perceive that pressure in the same way. Their mental maps, shaped by ideology, history, strategic culture, or political survival at home, filter what they see and how they act. Here's the neoclassical realist model. It starts with systemic stimuli, something from the international system that requires a response. But instead of triggering a predictable move, it first has to pass through perception, which is shaped by leader images, strategic culture, state-society relations, domestic institutions. Those perceptions influence decision-making, which is also shaped by internal politics, electoral pressure, bureaucratic dynamics, regime type. From there, it moves to policy implementation. This is where we start to see actual foreign policy decisions take shape. And that's why you get multiple possible outcomes from the same stimulus. This theory was formalized in the 1990s by a guy called Gideon Rose, building on scholars like Schweller, Wohlfürth, and Taliaferro. They showed that to really understand state behavior, you have to zoom in on the institutions, ideologies, leadership psychology that shape how power is used and how it's perceived. Let's talk about some real-world examples. Take Ukraine. A structural realist might say that Russia invaded because of NATO's eastward expansion. But neoclassical realism goes deeper. It asks, how did Putin perceive NATO? What beliefs and pressures were shaping his inner circle? What narratives were playing out at home that made the invasion politically viable? Same with the US pulling out of Afghanistan. Structural realists might talk about overstretch. Neoclassical realists look at domestic fatigue, leader psychology, and strategic culture. They zoom in on the lens through which power is interpreted, not just where it exists. And here's the power of neoclassical realism. It doesn't just explain, it helps us predict. So when you understand how leaders see the world, how their publics constrain them, and how their institutions translate power into policy, you can spot turning points before they show up in the news. China's posture in the South China Sea, Iran's negotiating tactics, even Trump's foreign policy stances. All of it makes more sense through this lens. So next time you see a world leader making a move that doesn't seem rational on the surface, you can ask yourself, what pressure are they under? What do they believe? What are they perceiving to be a priority? Who do they need to please? Neoclassical realism helps you understand not the world as it should be, but as it really is. If you want short, sharp takes on global politics through this lens, subscribe here and check out my Substack at Mackinder Insights. I'll be back with more of this. Stay tuned.